We're here on the old outlaw trail just north of Robbers Roost in Utah, and behind me are the Book Cliffs, and it was here in May of 1900 that Kid Curry killed the sheriff, Jesse Tyler, and his deputy, Samuel F. Jenkins, in an act of revenge for the death of his adoptive father, George Flatnose Curry, and his brother, Lonnie Curry, out in Missouri. Now, Harvey Logan, his birth name, was born in Iowa, just north of the Missouri border, and at this point in time, it was just after the Civil War. Bushwhackers like Jesse James hadn't yet stopped fighting, and they were kind of celebrated as these chaotic cultural icons, especially for people who had a real mistrust of authority, which is something that the Curry family definitely did. They were mostly tenant farmers. Well, at age 9, Curry's mother died, and most of the brothers moved down to Missouri to be with their aunt. But it seems that Kid Curry, Harvey Logan, he continued down to Texas and took up a job of breaking horses at the Rising Star Ranch. Well, there he met a man by the name of George Flatnose Curry, and quickly the man kind of became his adoptive father. But he was such a powerful influence on Harvey Logan that not only did Harvey Logan legally take the name Curry, but all of Logan's brothers took the name Curry as well, and he became sort of an adopted father of the whole family. And in 1883, George Flatnose and Kid Curry, they go up on a cattle drive to Colorado, to Pueblo, and it seems that there was a saloon in town, and because he was a cowboy under the employ of the ranch, he became an outlaw when he got into a bar fight, and I'm unable to find sources, but he probably killed the guy or severely maimed him. And at the time, what you would do if you were on the run from the law is you'd head up to Browns Park, and that's when his brother and a friend buy a ranch up in Montana. So he goes up to this ranch, but it just so happens that the ranch is right next to a mining claim made by a German immigrant who's fairly rowdy, and he starts accusing Kid Curry of having the hots for his wife. So a bar fight breaks out, and Curry socks him in the face, and this guy, he falls over and starts playing dead or playing as though he's passed out. So Curry goes to leave the bar, and the guy pulls a pistol as Curry's back is turned and says, "I'll kill you, Curry!" And his friends, because Curry he's unarmed at the time, they toss him a pistol, and the German immigrant's pistol jams, but Curry gets a shot on him and kills him right there. Now, this would have been a clear-cut case of Wild West self-defense. He shouldn't have been convicted, but by all accounts, this German immigrant was very good friends with the judge in town. So Curry knew that before the trial started, he'd have to go on the run. So for a while, Curry is with the Blackjack Ketchum gang, then he forms his own gang after a little while of being sort of a rodeo clown, and then he joins with Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch just in time for the Wilcox train robbery. One of the most famous train robberies to happen in the waning days of the Wild West happened just east of here at Wilcox Station in 1899. This robbery was led by Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch, and it basically went like this. They flagged down the train, they boarded it, and they held a gun up to the window and said, "You're letting us in." And the guy wouldn't do it. He was a Union Pacific driver, and they didn't want to kill him because that wasn't really the MO of the Wild Bunch. So they placed dynamite at the front of the door, and they blew the door open, almost knocking him out. They slapped some sense into him, and they said, "Now you gotta unlock the safe, but first, you gotta take the final few train cars and just unhitch them. Go 2 miles down the road, and you'll unlock the safe." And he did that, and when they got 2 miles down the road, the guy said, "Well, I don't know the combination. I'm just the driver." So they understood that he probably wasn't lying. They slapped him around a bit. They blew the back off the safe, but they used too much dynamite, and money was everywhere. And the town of Medicine Bow was just a couple miles away, and they knew that the law would be on their tail if they didn't hurry up. So they're scrambling, picking up money, and they go up to Hole in the Wall, Wyoming, very likely, with about $30,000 to $50,000 worth of ill-gotten goods.
This is the only main display they have on the train robbery. I saw a similar one right up in the Johnson County Museum.
And this is where he gets in way over his head. He's kind of just a minor outlaw at this point. He's participated in a couple train robberies and killed a few people, and possibly also a few lawmen. He's gotten into quite a few shootouts. But once they rob the Wilcox train, that's the Union Pacific coming down on you. That's the Pinkertons. And when you kill the sheriff in the aftermath of that, that's now every sheriff's department in the country wants you dead. So he is really on the run at this point, and that's when Tom Horn and a man, Charlie Siringo, become involved. Tom Horn was a hired killer for the Wyoming Stock Growers Association and the Pinkertons, and Siringo was a crack detective who loved to impersonate being an outlaw, joining these gangs and associating with the people who knew Kid Curry personally. And from this point out, it is a cat and mouse chase. They're going up and down from New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. They're all over the place. And in 1900, in February, his brother, Lonnie Curry, is shot in Missouri. The sheriff goes to arrest him, but a shootout ensues, and Lonnie is shot and killed. Well, there is a retreating shootout as the surviving members of the gang try to make it back west. They get to Colorado with a man named News Carver, and it appears that around Colorado, News Carver broke off, and Kid Curry continued into Grant County, because he'd found out there that the sheriff, Jesse Tyler, had killed his adoptive father, George Flatnose Curry, and Jesse Tyler had also made it his mission to kind of eradicate the Robbers Roost gang, which used the canyons on the old outlaw trail, and he'd done a pretty good job of it. He'd killed at least 2 people associated directly with Kid Curry. So he comes up here to Grand County with the express purpose of killing Jesse Tyler and any lawman he sees. Now he's on a mission of revenge, and that would come to fruition at the Book Cliffs here behind me. But I'll pick his story back up in Thompson Springs, because that is where the lawmen came searching, because they knew he was hiding out near the cliffs behind me. A few days before the Moab Massacre, Deputy Jenkins and Sheriff Tyler rode into the town of Thompson Springs. And Thompson Springs is kind of one of those towns that's popular along the old outlaw trail because it's right alongside the network of canyons that stretches down from the Four Corners area all the way up to Montana, and it's serviced by a railroad. So they roll in on their horses knowing that there are rustlers about, and they go looking for them by riding about 30 miles up north to the Book Cliffs. And as they're moving through the canyons, apparently they see Kid Curry and another outlaw, and they try to get the draw on them while they're asleep, but Kid Curry wakes up and shoots both of them. Now, dead men tell no tales, and we don't know whether or not Kid Curry actually ambushed the sheriff and his deputy, or whether the deputy and sheriff were trying to ambush Kid Curry. But what is known is that these were the 2 men responsible for killing Kid Curry's adoptive father, and Kid Curry was very boastful of this killing afterwards. And for a while he would go back to Colorado, satisfied that his job here in Utah was pretty much done, and he would go on to rob a train near Parachute. And it's at Parachute that he met his end. He got into a shootout, and it was called Logan's Last Stand, and he was shot while taking cover behind a rock, and realizing that he wasn't going to make it out, and he certainly wasn't going to get a fair trial, he decided to end his own life there in the outskirts of Parachute. In the early morning hours of June 7th, 1904, Kid Curry would commit his last train robbery with 2 accomplices, and this panned out that train number 5 was a little bit west of the town of Parachute, Colorado. They boarded it, they made off with some money, and authorities estimated it was about $30. Now immediately I'm casting a little bit of doubt onto this, because Kid Curry would have cased the train, and he would have known when they were transporting a lot of money. The fact that he only made it off with $30 is a little bit unrealistic for this being Kid Curry. Anyway, they get on a stolen rowboat, they cross the Colorado River, and they run up to Battlement Mesa where they have 3 horses waiting for them. Over the course of that day, they run those horses to exhaustion, heading about a mile south to a different ranch and stealing 3 horses there. Now this is another thing which sets the community off at them for, because usually communities are fine enough with you stealing from the trains, but if you start rustling their horses, that's when they start turning on you. And so they run those horses to exhaustion, and the following morning, they show up at a different rancher's property. They pay him $1 for breakfast, but they steal 3 of his horses, further incensing the community, and then just as a final cherry on top, they cut the telegraph wires so that he won't be able to make any calls out. Well, he quickly patches them up, and he makes a call to his neighbors, and there's already a posse forming, so now there's 15 people people coming on this gang of outlaws as they're heading towards the east, towards populated settlements, rather than to the west in the open desert where they always head, or at least all of the wild bunch would always head. They're going east for some reason, which again casts doubt on it. And they steal even more horses. So now you've got an additional 25 people coming in to try to bring them to justice. And of course, this is the point in time where they finally meet up with a posse of 6 men who drive them up the mountain where Kid Curry is apparently shot, and another couple of the outlaws. They do manage to escape, but Kid Curry was shot and he took his own life on the slopes of this hill right here. So as the posse men pursue them up this very hill, this is actually where the shootout happened, Kid Curry jumps behind a large rock. The location of this rock is now sort of lost to history, we don't know where it is, but I'll use this log to demonstrate where the bullets went and kind of what happened. He's taking aim at the posse men, and he shoots the horse out from underneath one of them, and the guy jumps behind the horse and starts taking aim at Harvey Logan, Kid Curry. And as Curry's getting the beat on him, the guy shoots Curry right here, and the bullet, when it enters, it ricochets off the bone and it shatters his right arm, goes across his chest, grazes his chest. It's a very deep wound, but it doesn't hit the heart, and it exits his left arm. It also breaks 2 of his ribs, so Curry knows that he's down and out, and immediately one of his friends shouts out, "Sam, are you all right?" Now remember that, Sam, are you all right? And Curry shouts out, "It's all done for me, boys. You might as well continue on up ahead. I might as well end it here." And so he takes out a pistol and he holds it up to his right temple and he pulls the trigger. Now, Curry died right there, and the man who's responsible for shooting him was given a $25 reward. He was also given a new horse to replace the one that had been shot and a new gun, kind of as a thank you from the sheriff. But the actual reward for killing Kid Curry should have been $13,000, and this was, of course, never given to him. And who is supposedly Kid Curry is buried just about 30 miles to the west of here, to the east of here, rather, in Glenwood Springs. Now, if you remember when I was up in Utah, I was talking a little bit about the Pinkerton detective, a man named Siringo. And after this outlaw buried next to me died, Siringo saw the body and he immediately said, "That's not him, it can't be." And then he heard the details about how in his dying moments, his friends addressed him as Sam. "Sam, are you okay?" Now, if I'm an outlaw, yes, I might have a bunch of aliases, and yes, a couple of them might be Sam. But why would my friend address me to a very possibly mortal wound as my alias? Why wouldn't he go John? Now, he believed that it is very likely that Kid Curry escaped. And the whole plot of Butch and Sundance escaping Bolivia in 1909 and coming back to the US and living in Wyoming, I believe beyond the shadow of a doubt that that happened. I've met plenty of people, and I've actually put out interviews with family members who their father knew Butch Cassidy up in Wyoming, specifically near Lander. So I believe Harvey Logan could have actually made it to Bolivia. He could have at some point given the Pinkertons money and had the upper leadership of the Pinkertons say, well, he's okay, let him go, and just blame his death on the death of another outlaw. So in this cemetery rests either Kid Curry or some unknown outlaw from an unknown past named Sam.
And I'm standing here watching the sunset over Kid Curry and Doc Holliday's grave.